Right, hi everybody. We are here to talk about recruiter enablement, but we're going to talk about it from a very specific angle today. We're going to talk about it from the context of sales, sales playbooks for recruitment agency businesses. Very close tangential relationship with the overall concept of recruiter enablement. I'm here with Ben Browning. Ben's an expert in the area that we're going to be talking about. Ben, thank you for joining me, and give us a quick introduction. Who are you, and tell us about Resonant.
Sure, Adam. Thank you. Great to join you. So look, the business that I run, Resonant, is focused on helping recruitment leaders who perhaps recognise that they want their team to be better at selling, better at engaging new clients, better at winning high quality new business. And where they've perhaps kind of considered bringing in trainers and coaches before, they've really boosted performance for a short period of time. What they've found is, as those people go on to leave the business, or once the training kind of maybe fades away or settles in, recruiters settle back to old practices and perhaps different individual styles of approaching selling. And what I was typically finding more and more from the businesses I was coaching and training was a real gap around building out effective sales processes. They give clarity and confidence to everybody involved, and then give them the freedom to play on top of that. And so that's what we do with Resonant. We create playbooks that give recruitment businesses real clarity and certainty and control over the way they go about winning high quality new business.
Right. So to me, training is normally a one-off intervention, and everybody who's been in the room gets a bit of a boost. But then when they leave the organization, they take all of that with them. And it's not necessarily, it's very difficult to land as a sustainable kind of thing. You're a trainer by background, right? So like, am I on the right lines there?
Yeah, and look, the business that I run now and the way we approach things is born out of the mistakes that I made, quite honestly, in terms of going into businesses, working with teams, creating that spike in performance, creating that spike in activity, and then following up 3 or 6 months later and hearing that actually people have defaulted back to the easier kind of approaches, perhaps the things that they felt were more inside their comfort zone. I suspect you are familiar with the book Good to Great, and the idea of kind of the flywheel concept, where you over time build a process that carries more and more momentum, and it gets to a certain point, and then you really start seeing exponential growth. I actually think that sales processes should be much more like that. One, locking the learning in so that when people leave, the process doesn't. And secondly, creating a process that everybody's iterating on so that you get better and better every time. Almost with training, you create this utopian ideal and then gradually wait for things to taper off with a process. That process-based approach for me is all about driving standards up and up and up, rather than setting a really high standards and watching as they fall away.
Okay, talk to me about the playbooks. There's chapters in the playbook. What are the different elements within the kind of playbook that you would build with a customer?
Yeah, and look, these are all completely bespoke, right? Because every recruitment business is different, and it's only when you really start talking to recruitment leaders across the industry that you realise how vastly different every recruitment business is. My approach is largely based on consultative selling, and the idea that unless you are really transforming the way your clients recruit, you are being transactional. So you're either kind of transformational or transactional. And the chapters in the playbook align with that. The end result of the playbook is designed that recruiters can go out and win multi-hire contracts with their clients. Typically, for most of my clients, their kind of ideal client is hiring maybe somewhere between 5 and 20 times a year. And then the chapters kind of map across initially setting out key principles, so goal setting, metrics, then moving through ICP and really defining who you should be targeting, working through the problems that you solve. Then we move to your outreach strategy, and then we move through to kind of sales meetings, closing proposals, and how to really kind of then tee that up for excellent delivery, almost kind of moving into the space of the beginnings of customer success.
This is great, because it'll really level up a lot of the people who are really good recruiters, but the sales part of it is not necessarily their forte. I really think that the job of a 360-degree recruiter is tough because there's so many different, it appeals to, you got to draw on your left brain, you got to draw on your right brain. And, unless you're a genius, unless you're some sort of genius, you can't do all of it. So with your sales playbooks, you're going to be able to get a real kind of boost on the bits that maybe those people that are not natural salespeople are going to be able to, The other thing that I was going to say about this is you're absolutely right. Every kind of recruitment business is different in terms of what they're offering. And certainly when I was a recruitment consultant, it was a long time ago now, but I mean, I would aim at every moving target, and that's not what they should be doing today, right? So the concept of an ICP, for example, is something that's not necessarily immediately familiar to recruitment businesses.
Yeah, absolutely. And to put a label on that acronym, it's ideal client persona, right? And it's really so it's not even talking about who your ideal client is in terms of how big they are as a business or what sector they are or what niche they're in, but it's really thinking about how do those people like to communicate? What are their priorities? What are their pressures? What are the preferences that they have for the way they kind of buy, the way they hire, the way they operate? It's really thinking about the fabric of those individuals, which, when done right, is huge. Because again, if you think about a recruitment business whose ideal client maybe hires between 5 and 20 times a year, are you better off going out to the market and seeking out people who are actively hiring, who by their very nature probably considering a few different options, not maybe looking at transforming their hiring process, but really just looking, frankly, for candidates? Or are you better off thinking about, right, let's take a swathe of people who we know will hire 5 to 20 times in the next 12 months, and let's go very kind of specifically targeting them in conversations, regardless of whether they're hiring or not, to win their business, to win that relationship, to win that commitment for the next 5, or let's say typically the next 5 hires that they make. For me, when you actually focus on an ICP, it frees you up. It stops you having to be timing specific, makes your product kind of more evergreen, that kind of evergreen approach, but means you can go and have a much wider range of conversations with a much narrower set of people, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it certainly does. For you talent acquisition people that are maybe watching this, I wonder if the concept of a playbook for your candidate outreach and approach is something that could be worth considering as well. Ben, thank you for taking the time to join me today. How do people contact you?
Well, of course, they can find me on LinkedIn, where my handle is Ben Browning Rec, but you can find me there. You can also find me on the Recruiting Better podcast, which I release every week an episode, and that's available on all the platforms and on YouTube as well. So if you're watching this on YouTube, why not head over there now?
Yeah, brilliant. Okay, Ben, thanks very much for taking the time to come and talk to me, and hopefully see you again soon.
Nice one. Cheers, Adam. Thank you.
Cheers.